I'm Sharon Guynup. Now imagine hearing that in an open Jeep in the jungle. And those weren't even roars you should be worried about. That was just an audio clip of tigers mating. But let me tell you, when I heard that in India, it didn't matter what they were doing. It was terrifying, and it was also really exciting. Tigers are huge. They're incredibly muscular. They have paws the size of dinner plates. They're the largest of the world's cats, and they're also the heart and soul of Asia's jungles. They're the apex predator throughout their range. It's no wonder that they've been both feared and revered throughout human history. Now, I was one of those kids who, by the age of 4, was dragging home an endless stream of emaciated, damaged creatures that I found in the New Jersey suburbs where I grew up. They were the first of a lifetime of mammals, birds, rodents, lizards, that I shared my home with and that I've also admired in the wild. I've always been awed by the world's creatures, not just the cute furry ones. Fast forward. I became a photojournalist. I traveled a lot. I covered the news. I photographed people and culture. But being a photojournalist means schlepping a lot of heavy equipment. And before it completely destroyed my already bad back, I switched gears. I went to graduate school. I became a science writer. And I returned to my roots, animals, this time armed with skills to speak for wildlife in the natural world. I've been on expeditions into some of the world's remaining wild places, often with National Geographic photographer Steve Winter, whose images you see here. One of those assignments took us to Kaziranga National Park in northeast India. There, I glimpsed my first tiger. That helped me understand why Asian cultures deified this cat, bestowing powers beyond those of any worldly animal. The Tibetans believed that tigers held the keys to immortality. Shamans in many countries were said to transform into tigers to move between worlds. Many believed that when a tiger killed a human, that soul entered the cat's body, so few dared to kill them. But as the fabric of traditional culture unraveled and guns proliferated, tiger slaughter grew common. Elaborate trophy hunts took out tigers by the hundreds. And then came the fashion craze for fur coats in the US and Europe in the 1960s. We just finished a book called Tigers Forever, and I didn't realize until I dug into research how extensive that annihilation had become. I discovered a shocking fact that almost no one knows. There are only 3,200 tigers left in the wild. 3,200. There are about that many captive tigers in Texas, and most of those are privately owned. The last wild tigers are scattered in small pockets across Asia. A century ago, more than 100,000 of these majestic cats roamed across 30 nations. Today, they hang on in just 12 countries. They've disappeared from 93% of their former range. One of the reasons that many of us don't know there's so few tigers left is because conservation organizations claim they're saving them. It's a way to keep donations rolling in. But the fact is, only a few organizations are saving them in a few locations. One of the world's most iconic animals, a species that's existed for 2 million years, is slipping towards extinction. Tigers are on track to be exterminated from the wild within our lifetimes. I want to say that again. Tigers are on track to disappear from the wild within my lifetime, within your lifetime. Why are tigers disappearing before our eyes? Like all endangered wildlife, they face a multitude of threats. Their power, their supposed magical qualities, and their beauty are great liabilities. And the needs of people and the needs of tigers often collide with deadly results. Asia's exploding human population is leveling the jungles and forests where tigers live. With villagers pushing deep into tiger territory, there's inevitable conflict, and their livestock sometimes gets eaten, especially by old or injured cats or by mothers with cubs. They're easy pickings. Some tigers have little else to eat. People have emptied the forests of deer and other tiger prey. When hungry tigers kill the cows or buffalo that are their livelihood, villagers retaliate by killing them. And the reality of living with predators is that they occasionally kill people. 2 years ago, I traveled to India's Bandhavgarh National Park. One day, a tigress wandered into a village that bordered the reserve. She was followed by her 3 huge, almost grown cubs. The park director sent 3 men on elephants to herd them back into the park. The tigress was really stressed out, and I was maybe 100 yards away in a jeep when she encountered a villager walking through a field. With one swipe, she killed him. We heard the screams. It was a horrific confluence of factors: tigers with too little space, India's rapidly growing human population, and bad park management. The tiger's current precipitous decline began in the 1980s with a wave of trapping, snaring, and poisoning across their range. At that time, an appetite for animal parts used in traditional medicine skyrocketed. The carnage occurred in tandem with China's expanding industrialization and a rising middle class that had growing buying power. For millennia, medicine men have ascribed magical powers and healing properties to tigers. The cats became a universal apothecary. Nearly every part, from nose to tail, has been used to treat something: liver, joint, skin and kidney problems, baldness, laziness, fevers, possession by evil demons, good to know, flagging libido, and headaches. Today, the most crushing demand is for tiger bone. It is used in tiger bone wine. It's a tonic made by soaking a tiger skeleton in rice wine. It's thought to impart the animal's great strength. Vietnam and other countries also trade in tigers, but their consumption pales in comparison with China. And in China, there's also a thriving luxury market for tiger skin furniture. Despite an international treaty that bans trade in tiger or tiger parts, poaching is a thriving black market business. In China, a tiger's worth $10,000, and prices continue to soar as populations collapse. But tigers are just one product within a larger illegal wildlife trade. That trade also includes the poached elephants and rhinos that are currently in the headlines. In 2008, Interpol agents testified before Congress. They informed them that organized crime syndicates are masterminding the wildlife trade. Those same cartels also run gun, drug, and human trafficking operations. It's become one of their fastest growing and most lucrative activities. It's a $20 billion a year business. Essentially, roving gangs of thugs are killing precious wildlife to supply the Chinese medicine market. Though police and customs agents make some arrests and seizures, penalties are light. Few poachers or smugglers see jail time. Most governments view wildlife crime as an environmental issue. It's really low on the list of priorities. We are on the precipice of losing tigers in the wild, along with so many of our world's creatures. We as citizens of the planet need to decide whether that matters. The good news? There's still enough habitat to support healthy tiger populations. One thing I've learned is that they're very adaptable. They thrive with just the basics: food, water, and a place to live. When you add boots on the ground protection, Strong laws, enforcement, and careful monitoring, they bounce back. A tigress breeds at the age of 3 and can birth 15 cubs in her lifetime. It's a very productive species, but it will take committed, targeted action and creative strategies to bring them back. Saving them will require the expertise of the best scientists. Those experts must share their knowledge with governments and prod them to act. Governments must protect remaining habitat, and they must safeguard tigers from poachers. They must use armed guards to protect them from poachers. Armed guards? Yes. Parks need patrols for the same reason that cities need police. And governments must enact stringent laws and prosecute poachers. In India, which is home to half the world's remaining wild tigers, there's a 3% conviction rate for wildlife crime. And the communities that live with tigers must benefit from living side by side with a dangerous predator. Tourist dollars, compensation for lost livestock, something. But saving tigers also requires a world that cares. In the words of renowned field biologist George Schaller, I learned long ago that conservation has no victories. It's a never-ending process that each of us must take part in. If you're like me, you're wondering what you can do, find me online and I can share resources. I believe we need to save tigers not only because of their sheer majesty, but because they have the right as living beings to walk the planet. But why do we need them? Why should we fight to save them? Conservation is based to a large degree on moral values. The Hindus have sacred groves and sacred animals. Buddhism teaches respect and compassion for all living beings. Our desire to preserve forests or protect wildlife comes from the heart. People don't love pandas or wolves or tigers because they represent biodiversity. They touch us. We are moved by their beauty. People are drawn to forests for the quiet, for mental, physical, and spiritual renewal. But there's also a much broader reason to save the tiger slide towards extinction. Saving tigers will help us save ourselves. Let me leave you with a couple of things to ponder. If we preserve the remaining big tracts of forest, wetland, and jungle that tigers need to survive, we're giving them enough space to hunt, find a mate, and enough land to survive catastrophic events like floods or drought. But the positive impacts of conservation at that grand scale radiate outward with global implications. Those wild lands pull carbon from the atmosphere and slow climate change. They provide buffer from flooding, protecting towns and cities. They prevent erosion of the rich soil that we need to grow crops. Forests purify the rivers and streams that run through them, the watersheds that provide drinking water for millions of people. By protecting tigers and top predators in any food chain, we also save the entire spectrum of life that shares their realm, preserving ecosystems that have been fine-tuned over millennia. We still have time. Where there's life, there's hope. But the time to act is now. Once the last tigers disappear, no longer gliding on velvet paws through the jungle, we cannot bring them back. Thank you very much.